Welcome to the Center Soccer Podcast, number 2, sponsored by the Bluegrass Pizza and Pub. Located in downtown Danville at 314 Main Street, Bluegrass Pizza and Pub has the largest craft beer selection in Danville, with many selections hard to find in Kentucky. A 2015 recipient of the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence, they have great salads, sandwiches, and pizza. And right now, they have a fried chicken sandwich with pickles that is off the charts. I've eaten the sandwich close to 20 times already. You gotta try it. And not to be forgotten, one of the more rare and vintage concert poster collections you'll find anywhere in the U.S. Our hard work in recruiting has paid off with the announcement of 4 new players. I feel we're in a good position and hope to have the class of 2022 complete very soon. I encourage you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you do not already, and keep up to date on all things Center Soccer. If you're following us on Twitter, then you know the Alumni Weekend is April 6th and 7th, and you saw the recent exchanges between Adam Boyer, Andy Carroll, and then Center Women's Soccer, in what will be a new fun way to play our futsal tournament on Friday night. Last year's Alumni Weekend was the second most attended on-campus alumni event, and I hope you can make it out again this spring. Coach Brooks and Spivey and I recently spent 5 days at IMG in Florida to observe Louisville City and FC Cincinnati in preseason training. We were also able to watch 2 games as well. A big thank you to Coach James O'Connor and Tabani Sutu and their staff at Louisville City, and Coach Alan Koch at FC Cincinnati for their openness and allowing us to observe their training. We saw some good stuff, and we're also able to spend the evenings talking shop about our center soccer team. Sorry, Mom, we kept her up too late one night. All right, on to the good stuff. Today we catch up with Miles Barkley, who lives in Charleston, South Carolina. Miles has good insight to the early years of our soccer program, and he stayed involved in soccer after center, helping develop soccer in the Charleston area. He has provided guidance and support to our soccer program since I can remember. All right, so welcome, Miles. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with us.
Good morning, Jeff. Good to be here.
So tell us who we're talking with today.
Well, you're talking with Miles Barkley, class of 1982 at Center College, in my conference room at Lee & Associates Charleston, which is a commercial real estate firm here in busy Charleston, South Carolina.
So let's get started. You obviously played what years at Center?
Oh, I came in, God, it's so long ago, but great opportunity to try to remember some of the facts and some of the fiction. But I played from 1979 to 82. I don't know if you and others can really remember that far back, kind of before civilization hit.
Yeah. So how did you find Center?
Well, I'll try to make a long story reasonably short. Things happen for a reason, and back, in growing up in Charleston, literally never went anywhere, never went to camp, basically went to Porter-Gaud School for 12 years, went to Sullivan's Island, which I know that you're familiar with some of the areas here, and anybody who might listen to this probably knows Charleston to some degree, but I'd spend the summers on Sullivan's Island, and at that time in 1977, all I knew was I got to get out of here. I had to do something different, and wasn't quite sure what. And my brother and mother before me, they had been instrumental. There's a traveling group called Up With People, which is still in existence, but was a bit more relevant and widespread in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s. Actually, if you ever get a trivia of who's performed more at the Super Bowl, just say Up With People. But I took a year off, got out of town, traveled the world literally for 12 months, and it was quite adventure, learned a lot about myself. And when I finished up in Indianapolis in July, all I knew was I didn't want to come back to Charleston.
Wow.
And my mom at a cocktail party and heard about this special little college in Danville, Kentucky.
Huh.
And all they knew was I was going to do something.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really prepared, and they suggested, well, why don't we go take a look?
Huh.
And I can remember going up there in late July and having an interview, and next thing I knew, I was accepted.
Yeah.
You know, back in those days, you could actually get into a college at such a late date than you can now. But I think that's just another indication of things were meant to be.
Yeah.
And I had actually we had performed in Lexington at the Opera House a couple of months before, and I remembered how I liked Lexington. There was something about it to this day.
Yeah.
I particularly liked Lexington, and I said, well, you know, that's close to a place I liked. I want to go somewhere else and continue my adventure, and this little small town of Danville, why not?
Yeah, I know.
So that's how that story came about.
Yeah, it's funny. I think a lot of people have those kind of stories on how they discovered Center, and it's always a kind of a little bit of a coming together of random events that make people come find it.
Well, if they had told me it was a dry county when I visited, I might have thought about it a little more, but I worked through those issues just fine.
Yeah. Actually, when I went to Center College, kegs were legal, so times have certainly changed.
Well, they may have not been legal, but they were around.
Yeah, they were around, right. Do you remember who coached you?
Learn and product of the environment.
Right.
Times change, and so has Danville.
Exactly. So do you remember who coached you at Center?
Yes, I do, pretty well. Probably more than some of the other aspects of the school and soccer. You talk about paving the way, or I will a little more. We had two gentlemen, Bob Piziak, which I think taught at Center math for about 8 or 9 years before he went to Baylor.
Huh.
But Don Brown, who was a motivational psychology teacher. I don't know how it came about, but when I showed up, we had a math teacher and a psychology teacher double teaming us to teach us about the game of soccer, when in reality we knew really more than they did. But at that time, Center soccer was really a club level sport disguised as a varsity level sport.
Yeah.
And it was really trying to legs and players before me, whether it was John Boardman or John Sosnowski or others. It was all about trying to get a program started. So I don't know how they were elected, but they were the coaches at the time.
Do you remember where you practiced and played your games?
I do. We had to Google it to remind myself before this podcast, but we were on, I think it may have been the only other vacant land at the time other than the cow fields or the sheds behind us, but it was in between the football stadium and the tennis courts.
Yeah.
It's now where the current baseball field is, and I guess like the soccer program itself, a bit ragged but real.
Yeah.
And it was a place to play, and we made the most of it. I'd like to think we left a few more divots than we first experienced, but it was a challenge like most everything else.
Was the greenhouse attached to the back of Young there when you guys were on that field?
You know, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember that. I'm not sure I paid much attention to it, but, occasionally we get to use a locker room in Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
And, we'd make that short walk. More often than not, it was a walk from the fraternity house to the field.
Right. I remember.
We got the treatment.
I remember when I came in 1990, and we would practice on that field. We wouldn't play games, but we would practice. But I remember they had a little glass greenhouse there on the back of Young. And I remember that frustrating Coach Chafin so much because it always got hit by a long hit ball, and it would break a piece of glass. And I can remember that being a real thorn in everyone's side.
Well, now that I think about it, I think it was there.
Yeah.
When were you there?
I was there. I was there 1990 to 94 is when I played.
Okay, because I tell you, I do remember the 79 to 82, but I'm not sure what happened to my life from 82 until Brian Davis called me in 89 or something like that.
Right.
So I kept trying to. The power of the internet couldn't even tell me what happened between those years.
Sure.
I'm sure the program was there, but it was an opportunity to, more than anything else, to help establish a program. And when I look back on it, even though we laughed and second-guessed the coaches and a bit of rebels in ourselves,
right.
It's satisfying to see where things have come today.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about.
We did have uniforms and practice gear, but it was basically a bag full of balls, something yellow with center on it, and one water cooler. We had to carry all of it ourselves.
Right. Leonard talked about in the first podcast we did about having maroon uniforms. Do you remember your kits were yellow?
Yeah, maybe we graduated to actual center colors.
Right.
But I don't remember maroon, but I remember white, and I say yellow. I think it's supposed to be gold.
Yeah,
but,
gold. Yeah.
I just remember them being fairly uncomfortable and non-breathable.
Sure. Yeah.
Back then they let you. Well, maybe they do now.
Yeah.
Let your hair down and your jersey out.
Of course. So tell us a little.
Have some equipment.
Tell us a little bit about your teammates. Some of the fun personalities, some of the fun stories with some of the guys.
Well, it was an eclectic group to say the least. Probably, I'd say a third that had never played soccer but wanted to be active. A third, like myself, that played soccer at a pretty well-established program in high school with Porter Goud.
Mm-hmm.
And the other third were former football players that didn't make the team but wanted to still be physical and play a sport. And I can remember showing up for early practice in 79 and walking on that field and thinking, wow, I didn't know what to expect. Was it going to be all formal and really organized and together like, I remembered at Porter Goud, but it was fairly loose, and looking at the coaches, I said, wow.
Yeah.
And it really came off as more of a rebel group, when I'm a freshman, but I walked on, at least for then, at center. I was looked upon as a quality player.
Yeah.
And basically had the opportunity to play from the first game on. And, any good resource was a good resource and got the chance to play. But, a lot of the older players, the junior and seniors, like Mark Sturdivant, who was the goalie, and Noel Booker, who was the fullback, Scott Simon. There was a group of older players that, I got a little extra treatment because I was fairly decent. But I looked up at them, and, it was a bridge between the first couple of years playing with the older players and being a part of that group. And then as I got older, we had the younger players, and we really each year developed a bit more. So, maybe a rebel without a cause, but the people that come to mind back then were, certainly the ones that I mentioned, and then the players that I particularly played with, co-captain my junior year with Larry Pritchett. And then we actually, junior and senior year, we had some really good players, Ray Michael and Rob Gurnett, fellow classmates, Ed Stump and Scott Dickens, and John Earthman, Tennessee boy particularly, kind of like me, came on from a really good high school, and we had to learn to adjust, but it was just fun to play, and I got a starting lineup. I'm not sure it's an all-time starting lineup.
But I want to hear yours. Yeah, we want to hear yours.
Well, I'd say right now, if I had to go with that team, we had a African American, but I think he was more from Africa. Fred Autry, who played on the wing, and he and David Goslin, I remember them being particularly skilled, having more moves than anybody I could imagine. I'm not sure they really went anywhere, but they certainly could move with the ball. And then I'd say John Earthman, Ray Michaela, Rob Gurnett, Scott and Ed, as I mentioned, David Goslin. We had John McClure, who was, a couple of these players had some skills, but, you had to be aggressive because a lot of the teams we played were used to pushing us around and beating us. So we were determined not to be pushed around, and if you were going to beat us, well, dadgummit, you were going to earn it.
Yes.
And we could inflict as much physical influence as they could.
Yeah.
And I'd say when we didn't have a skill, we had a physicality. But, there were three particular defensive players that I remember for physicality and got better as it went along was a fellow classmate, Robert Groves, who was a particular contributor to, I believe, the new facility, but to the soccer program.
Yes.
Reed Schuyler and Phil Reckup, and it may draw a penalty, but you weren't going to get through.
You weren't going to get through them. It's interesting to hear you say the rebellious attitude. I think that's honestly been a part of our DNA from the get-go. It seems like the center always has played with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they always kind of showed up and gave it their all.
Well, I think that's an indication of maybe the small school atmosphere as you played some other schools. It's always better when you can back it up with skill. And I'm not going to say we weren't skilled, but, I think there comes a time where you have to prove yourself and you figure it out as you go along. And if you're physical enough with the next player, they will respect that and pay a little more attention to you. So gradually, it started before. People came to center for different reasons, but some places they had the opportunity to play soccer and wanted to continue it. So the program has continued to get better and better, and frankly, you've got more and more local players that have the skills that have led you to where you are today. There was nothing to sell us on center soccer-wise. When I came, it was more about, I just want to continue playing, and I've got no illusions of anything happening from there.
Yeah.
My dad played football. My dad played football at UVA back in his day, so just to say you played a varsity sport in college was cool and fun to do, and after a while you got over the one-loss record or more of the loss one, and you enjoyed playing and making your mark.
Yeah.
So we had to earn that respect, and you have to earn it every day, but you've got a bit more to sell and attract talent to the program than we did back then.
Yeah. Do you remember any of your rivals?
Well, I do. Some of them no longer play. As the conference has expanded, a lot more teams. You tell me, you're going down to Texas, and used to be Colorado, and so forth. But much more of our athletic conference was more regional. Rose-Hulman, Memphis, Southwestern, I think it was.
Yeah, that's
Sewanee, which is still in the conference, I believe. So I'd say from a conference standpoint, Sewanee was and still is a rival.
Yes.
And then you had Transylvania, which, we actually always gave a pretty good game and look forward to, I won't say we won it every time, but you got to learn the teams that you actually had a chance against, and you really enjoyed it. And I think one team in particular, which will lead into a question of probably what's the win I remember mostly, was Asbury Seminary.
Yes.
At the time, which was maybe 30 minutes away, but as I looked at the schedule and looked who we played, I said, who is this team, Asbury Seminary? We're going to play a bunch of priests? What are we going to do here?
Right.
They would beat us every time, and everybody said, God, if we one day could beat Asbury Seminary. You're talking team, if we got 6 wins, we're feeling pretty good about ourselves.
Right.
But I can't remember if it was the junior year or what, but I got the lone goal, and we beat them 1-0 for the first time, and you'd think we'd won the World Cup.
Huh. So it's interesting because Leonard talked about the Asbury game as well. Did they have big crowds? Do you remember the crowd?
I think it very well could have been. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention because I wasn't used to seeing big crowds at our own games.
Huh.
But I think in some places, in Asbury Seminary, I'm not sure what else they had to do.
Exactly. Well, but, today they get very good crowds. And I've always known that about Asbury over the years. They do get great crowd support. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about them back from when you played. It seems very similar to what it is today.
Well, there are a few particular games that stand out, and that's certainly one of them. We played other teams like Cumberland College. There's a field right at the intersection of the interstate, so if you hit the ball out of bounds, it went across the interstate. Yeah,
that field is still there. It just got a big fence now.
Yeah, I look at it when I drive up every now and then going, boy, those were the days. But Berea and so forth, you got your local rivals, but a few of them stand out.
Yeah. So let's go back to your coaches a little bit, Miles. It sounded like a pretty fun combination of personalities there with your 2 coaches. Can you tell us about anything that you remember about them that's a fun story, or maybe where they got a little upset with you guys?
Well, I can. I can particularly remember, nobody likes losing, and, I grew up, at least in high school, with pretty well-experienced soccer coaches. These coaches, and God bless them, when you approach the game as a mathematical formula or from a psychological standpoint, they huddle us up.
Right.
And they try to, approach it, whether it's an algorithm or you've got to feel good about yourself.
Right.
You are a soccer player, you're motivational soccer or psychology.
It sounds so fun. Yeah.
This is fairly ridiculous. And, I respect him as I would any coach.
Sure.
It's appropriate to
Sure.
say. But it kind of went with the times that, okay, this is what it is. It didn't go anywhere. I know where we kind of fit into the center sport curriculum. Okay, Coach.
Okay.
We get it.
Right.
We're doing our best, but, it played into that rebel atmosphere. And I remember that Don Brown, I don't know if he's still around, but he had those short little pants pulled up so high, the long white socks, and that whistle, and now he's going, go, boys, go, you can do it.
I love it.
And it was just,
that was
comical. Thank goodness. I will say now, I don't know how it came about, but thank goodness for him. We may not even have a team.
Well, right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I wouldn't say, I'd say we and the coaches grew as it went along.
Yeah, yeah. Well, talk about outside of soccer.
Sports is part, I would say, just end that. I kind of learned sports is a lot psychological and how you feel about it mentally.
Sure.
I don't know about the mathematics of it, but all I know is you score more than the other team and you win.
Yeah, that's about right. Talk about the people outside of soccer, Miles. Any professors that really kind of stood out to you?
I do. I don't remember them all, but that goes with the territory. But I'd say as a political science major and particularly interested in the world, the 2 government political science teachers that stood out were Dan Stroop and Larry Matheny.
Yes.
And just made it very interesting. Not that others did, but anytime you're engaged and enjoy a class. It particularly stood out, and I'd have to say that another teacher, and just a pretty much great guy that everybody will say, Milton Riegelman.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Who just had a way of being able to relate. Plus, he was pretty funny.
Yes.
And to this day, he will constantly remind me how good I was as Charlie Brown in the school play.
That is pure Milton Riegelman right there for sure.
Yeah. It was great to see him just last October from my 30th or 35th. You do the math. But anyway, I'd say those three came to mind pretty quickly.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about kind of your takeaways from your experience at Center and kind of how they're relevant to life today.
Well, I won't quite go so far as to say that the man I am today, that's a combination of factors. But I would say a lot of what I am today is because of Center.
Yeah.
And we've touched upon, the time when I went to school, the small atmosphere of Danville. It was a time before social media, internet,
right.
All that. We had to stand in line to use the payphone to call home in the fraternity house. And I think that the big theme, it's relationships, it's friendships, it's the ability for this kid from Charleston to take a next step in, growing up and finding himself, to be a starter from day one for 4 years on the soccer team, to be the captain, to be a most valuable player at something, because I was never the most valuable player at Portage-Out. May not have meant much, but it sure meant a lot to me. And the combination of, Center was great.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I showed up. I said, "You actually have Wednesdays off?"
I know.
I said, this is a little too good to be true.
Yeah.
So I avoided labs and math. So I used Tuesday nights to the fullest.
Sure.
And the combination of soccer, entertainment, being in a school play or winning the talent show with a couple of classmates and just enjoying the school. I mean, it couldn't be much better. When you go back to your reunions, you actually want to go back.
Yeah.
You want to see a soccer game. You want to see how the program's developed.
Yeah.
As you look back in hindsight, there was a lot of bitching and moaning when we played at the time. But when you look at what Brian, Jason, and you have developed and the support that the school now gives the soccer program and the new facility, the rock from Hillside that I sponsored, I think it was appropriate to say from past to present.
Yes.
You got a lot of support for your soccer program. And, I'd say it's relationships and friendships. Those are invaluable, and I'd say they're influential.
Yeah.
A number of people I want to see more than my high school friends. I mean, it's just that's an influential part of my life.
Yeah. It's interesting. Earlier you had talked about how really you forget about the wins and losses. It's the relationships, and that really is, I think, one of the pillars of what our soccer program, and I think honestly what the college is built on. It really is about the relationships that you form at Center, and it really surprised my mom. Everyone says when they graduate, "Oh, they're my friends for life," and we woke up 20 years later, and she says, "You're still going and hanging out with your college friends?" And I was like, "Yes, Mom, I still am."
Well, your greatest assets in life are your family and your friends and your faith.
Yes.
Not necessarily in that order, but I call it the 4 F's: faith, family, friends, and finances.
Huh.
And Center is a big part of that. And you're right. At first the wins and the losses, or mainly the losses, particularly coming from a successful program, we're a little getting used to. But I put it in the context of life. And it was, I don't know how liberal arts colleges are now. They seem to be a bit more liberal back in my day. but it was a great liberal arts experience and a great environment to grow up in, and really wouldn't trade it for the world. I think it was it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so Miles, is there a favorite professional team that you're following today?
Well, I am. I was fortunate to have the opportunity, and certainly soccer was common denominator in 1982. A group of people in Charleston were approached by a coach, someone who had coached far off, who wanted to start a professional team in Charleston.
Huh.
And he was asking around town who was interested enough, or in this case, crazy enough,
Right.
to want to be involved starting a soccer team. And my name was mentioned along with Tony Backer, who founded Blackbaud Software.
Uh-huh.
And about 10 of us got together and developed the Charleston Battery Professional Soccer Team, part of the USISL League.
Yes.
And that team has grown from really a club level, much like Center, to being a full-blown, I'd say minor league professional team.
Oh, yeah.
As you know, we've got an affiliation with the Atlanta MLS team, and every year we host a Challenge Cup, which brings 3 MLS teams here, and we play as a round robin. And we've been fortunate to develop a first-class soccer stadium and so forth. We sold it about 2 years ago, but it's firmly entrenched. And it's great to have been part of that. Beyond that, who doesn't watch the Premier League?
Yeah.
My son's favorite team is Tottenham. So
there you go.
I'd probably root for them, and they're probably the best team not to have won a title.
Yeah.
But they're great, and the Champions League. So particularly enjoy watching European soccer, but close to home would have to be the Charleston Battery.
How long were you a part of that group with the Charleston Battery? How many years?
Quite a few. I think we started it in 91 or 92, and up until 2 years ago when we sold it to somebody else who's crazier than us.
You're right. Huh. It's such a neat thing there. Well, I don't know,
Rode the soccer wave.
Right. Well, as you may or may not know, Miles, I'm a live music fan, and so I've got to ask, who's your favorite band, and can you name your number one song that you never get tired of listening to?
Talking about back then or now?
Now or back then? What's your favorite band?
Tunes are timeless. I'd have to say the one that stood out, and I'm a big music fan, but certainly Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild.
Uh-huh.
Or REO Speedwagon, Roll with the Changes.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And Little Feat was a big part. So I'd say you had the obligatory AC/DC when we came out to the Center soccer games way back then.
Uh-huh.
But when I get pumped up, a good Born to Be Wild or Roll with the Changes are 2 pretty good tunes.
That's great. Well, Miles, I really appreciate your time today, and I hope to see you back on campus sometime soon.
Well, Jam, it's been a pleasure. Again, I got to say what a great job you're doing and have done with the program, building on the events before you, but you got a great facility. It doesn't get any easier, but keep up the great work.
I appreciate it, Miles. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in October. Take care.
See you soon.
Get your motor running, head out on the highway, looking for adventure, and whatever comes our way.